Today on Floss Weekly, the show all about free, Libre and open source software, I will be your host in place of Randall Schwartz. I am Simon Phipps, and I will be speaking with James Nixon from the FreeNAS project, a project that lets you have a disk storage system on your network at home that you install and maintain yourself. My co-host is Dan Lynch, and I think you'll enjoy the English accents and the SOPA spin. It's up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Floss Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Floss Weekly with Simon Phipps and Dan Lynch. Episode 198, recorded January 18th, 2012, FreeNAS. This episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies on your PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or TV instantly. All streamed directly to you, saving you time, money, and hassle. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. It's time for Floss Weekly, where you can find out the latest news about free, Libre, and open source software. I'm your guest host for the show this week, Simon Phipps. Randall Schwartz is sunning himself in St. Thomas, somewhere hot and sunny, somewhere in the world today on another Insight cruise. And so you have me and my guest host, Dan Lynch. Dan, welcome to Floss Weekly again.
Hi, it's good to be back. Yeah, Randall gets all the hard jobs, doesn't he? Sunning himself in St. Thomas.
so, you know, there's you and I here in the United Kingdom where it's freezing cold and dark outside. And Randall is somewhere down in he's down in the tropics somewhere. So actually, you're not looking well today, Dan. You seem to have got all black and white. What's happened to you?
Yeah, I was going to say it's so cold we can't even get colour down here. But no, it's as many people will probably know, we're recording this on the 18th of January. And it's, the big SOPA blackout day. Wikipedia's down. Google have changed their Google logo to a blacked out one, I believe, and lots of other things. And right across Twit today, we're going to have everything in black and white, I believe, which is cool. I actually quite like the black and white. It looks quite good. I feel like I should have a hat on though. To give it full kind of 1920s gangster effect. But so we should talk a bit about SOPA, shouldn't we?
I think we should. You know, one of the things that people have been asking me is, you know, given that you and I don't live in the United States, we're non-resident aliens, people would be able to see the green skin if it wasn't black and white. People are asking us, what is this all about? So I know that you have been talking a lot on your own radio show about SOPA and PIPA. So what's the problem with them, Dan?
Well, the problem from my point of view is I mean, as you say, we're in the UK. We had a big, I think you were involved as well, and I was in a big campaign against a thing called the Digital Economy Bill a little while ago. And it's this idea that the content industry seems to keep coming up with, that they'd like to be able to just kind of remove websites from the internet, if that were possible, you know, without any kind of trial or any, you know, fair justice or anything, any kind of course of justice. They want to be able to accuse people, and then on that accusation, you know, block websites, stop people from trading, and in fact, in SOPA and PIPA as well, they want to be able to stop people from getting paid. They want to be able to, like PayPal, major banks, things like that. They want to be able to block payment. And I think that the key thing for me is this idea of guilty until proven innocent, which is slightly worrying, considering that I always thought it was supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So, I mean, it's a big issue for us in the open source community. So why do you think it's so important to open source then, Simon?
Well, while open source isn't directly about the streaming of movies and music, one of the problems with creating laws like PIPA and SOPA that create new ways for shutting people down on the internet is they get used for other purposes. So in the US, of course, there is law on the statute books there called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Dmca, that was like a previous incarnation of SOPA and PIPA, intended to stop piracy. And of course, that's worked so well. Those Somali pirates are no longer hijacking ships out there in the Gulf. the DMCA didn't do anything to stop piracy, but it did allow a printer manufacturer to stop third parties manufacturing ink cartridges for their printers, because they put a chip into the printer that checked the print cartridge had come from the original manufacturer, and then third parties were unable to produce ink cartridges that did the same checking. When third parties got round that restriction by making their ink cartridges have the same chip in them, the printer manufacturer sued them for circumvention under the DMCA. When you create these sorts of bad laws, people use them for chilling effects way beyond the scope of the original law. In just the same way that when the police are doing stops on the street over in the US, and citizens are recording the stop using their cell phones to record video, those citizens are being arrested for wiretap law infringements that date from the 1950s and 1960s. When you create laws like PIPA and SOPA, they get used for purposes that no one foresaw, and these laws have been written by people who don't even foresee the problems right now, today, on the internet. So when it comes to open source, I'm very worried that hostile parties, people hostile to open source software, will use the new powers under SOPA and PIPA to shut down open source communities and disrupt them. I believe we'll see open source communities beginning to get unjustified, unsupportable copyright infringement claims from big proprietary manufacturers that result in the community being, first of all, highly disrupted as they respond to them, and then forced to engage in audit and compliance tracking, which will make those communities non-viable. So I think SOPA and PIPA is very worrying in its own right, along the lines you were talking about, but then it has a second layer of concern. By creating bad law that will be with us forever, it's going to cause significant problems for open source communities. And that's the reason why, certainly why I am opposing it as an OSI board member and as a member of the Open Rights Group in the UK. I believe it's very important that internationally we stand shoulder to shoulder and oppose this crazy legislation that's being put into place. So I'm very pleased I'm in black and white this week.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I mean, we've seen a lot of this. As you said, people will say, what does it matter to us because neither of us are in the US? But these things have ripple out globally. And we've already seen that the US administration are putting pressure on other countries to adopt these measures and these 3 strikes laws and things. We had a story on Linux Outlaws last week about the Spanish government actually adopting these kind of laws because they were basically told by the US administration, and that's dangerous. I think it sets a precedent for other governments to follow, and not a precedent that we would like to see, I think. Right.
So I, along with Dan, both of us would like to encourage everybody watching or listening to this show live or listening to the recording to get in touch with your congressman or your senator if you're in the US, or to follow that link that's down on the bottom of the screen or across the top corner of almost every WordPress blog that's out there, and complain to the US State Department if you live outside the US. We can't let this one just go past us the way we did with the DMCA, because we will regret it for decades afterwards if we allow this law to go into place. Really, I feel quite strongly about this particular event. I do hope people are going to take action again about it. So we ought to move on from there, I think. So before I... that's an edit point for you there. So the subject today is FreeNAS. Do you know anything about FreeNAS, Dan?
Yeah, a little bit. I've used it once or twice about over the years, and yeah, it's great for home users, I think, or it has been traditionally great for home users. But yeah, it looks very cool. A great little BSD based network storage distro.
I'm going to be very interested to hear how they're getting on with, I think they've got ZFS that I used to be involved in when I was back in Sun Microsystems. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that's gone.
Or ZFS, as we should say.
ZFS, as I suppose we ought to auto-translate, seeing as we are guesting for Randall, as he sits there sunning himself on the deck of a cruise ship in St. Thomas. So before we bring on our guest, I would like to tell you a little bit about our sponsor for the show this week. This episode of Floss Weekly is brought to you by Netflix. who are big in the US and have just showed up over here in the UK as well. Netflix streams thousands of TV episodes and movies directly to you instantly on the internet. That means that you save time, money, and hassle. There are several easy ways to instantly access streaming movies and TV shows with Netflix. You can watch Netflix movies and TV shows on your Mac or PC or iPad. You can watch it on your iPhone and on some Android phones as well. If you've got a gaming console, I know we've got a load here in the house, you can watch it on your Xbox 360, your PS3, or your Nintendo Wii. And if you do that, you can then watch Netflix right there on your TV. If you're not a gamer, you can watch Netflix on your TV with an Apple TV box or a Roku box, which are inexpensive and easy to use. Or it may be that your TV, like mine, has got Netflix support built right into the TV. With Netflix, you can watch movies and TV shows instantly using any of these devices, and I'm sure the family is going to grow. As you begin watching a movie or show on one device, you can go to a different device and finish watching it on that one. Whichever way you want to choose to access Netflix, you can watch as many movies and TV shows as you want, anytime you want, and you can cancel anytime. So you can try Netflix today for 30 days, free of charge. Go to netflix.com/twit. You can see the URL there on the screen if you're watching the video. And be sure to use that URL when you sign up for your free trial. That's netflix.com/twit. That makes them love us more, and it makes them feel that you are wonderful as well. We'd like to thank Netflix for their support of Twit and of Floss Weekly, and we hope you enjoy watching instantly with Netflix. So, James, welcome to the Floss Weekly show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, fascinated by the idea of FreeNAS. Am I saying that right when I say FreeNAS, or should I say FreeNAS, or how would you like me to refer to you?
FreeNAS is fine.
Okay, that's good. So fascinated by the idea of FreeNAS. Tell us a little bit about FreeNAS. Pretend that I have no idea what I'm talking about when I say FreeNAS, and that I need it explained to me right from the beginning. What is FreeNAS?
FreeNAS is a block and file level storage device. It's a BSD-based, file server. You can share files via CIF, Samba, NFS, AFP. You can use it for backups and storing your files.
That sounds pretty interesting. So it's an operating system distribution that I load onto my own machine, or it's a box that I buy from someone. What is it?
It's a free and open source project that you can install on a box at home. You can either install it via CD or USB image, and you're going to want to install it onto like a USB stick and boot up to that, and then use a few drives to create your volumes.
Okay. So can I just install this on any old hardware that I've got lying around? I've got in my garden shed out there, I've got some old PowerPC Mac Minis. Could I put it on one of my PowerPC Mac Minis?
I'm not sure if you can do that, but you could give it a try and let us know how it went. I haven't personally tested that, so I can't really say, but it should work out. You're going to want to install it on if you want the real power of ZFS, which is what we're using on FreeNAS as a file system. It's going to take a lot of memory and maybe a little CPU, but if you just need a simple file server and you want to share files or do backups with UFS version 4, then the specs can be a little bit less, but I can't go into specific details about that.
Right. So you're using what I used to call ZFS when I was at Sun, and all of my American colleagues naturally call it ZFS. How's that going for you? Because I do remember that FreeBSD was one of the first places that took the ZFS source code and ported it across. Has that port gone well? Is it working reliably for you?
Yeah, if my memory serves me correctly, ZFS or ZFS was marked experimental for Solaris and FreeBSD for a while, and it was actually marked ready for production use first on the FreeBSD platform, so that was a win for us. It's been going pretty good. We have ZFS version 15 for FreeNAS, soon to come 28 in 9.0. But yeah, it's besides from being a memory hog, it's great.
Okay.
So, sorry, I'm cutting in on you there. Yeah, so this is based on FreeBSD, as you said, and being a big kind of Linux fan, one of the big things I hear a lot is why isn't ZFS, I call it ZFS as well because obviously I'm English, or ZFS. Why isn't it in Linux? And that was down to a licensing problem. So being a BSD-based distro, you were able to take that because it wasn't under the GPL. That enabled you to grab it in sooner. Is that right?
That is correct. And a lot of work was done to port it over from Solaris to FreeBSD. I believe Pavel Davidek from the FreeBSD project had a lot to do with that. And there's a lot of really smart guys working on that. So.
Excellent. And how close are the ties between the FreeBSD community and FreeNAS? Do you have the same people working on the same, on both things, or do you contribute a lot backwards and forwards?
So at IX Systems, where I'm employed, they adopted the project and the FreeNAS project, and we actually have a few FreeBSD developers in house, and so they commit to both projects and help out in both areas. But we have a dedicated team for FreeNAS.
Excellent. And how many people work on it? How many people are in the team?
Let me see. There's myself, John Hickson, Garrett Cooper, Josh Petzel, Matt Olander, Jin Lee, William Gerzybowski, if that's how I say his name, and and Jenny Rosenberg does the images and the graphic design for the project. If I'm forgetting anyone, excuse me.
That's okay. Yeah, it's always dangerous once you get into naming people because you just leave one person off and they'll get really upset. But no, that's great. So I was having a look through your website and so on, and the differences between, you've got a thing on there about comparing version 7 of FreeNAS with version 8, which is the current version, I believe. And there's quite a few differences there. Can you tell us a bit about the differences between 7 and 8 and maybe why they've come about?
The major difference is we're no longer using the monowall framework, which is a PHP-based way to get an interface up pretty quickly, I guess. But and we're using a minified version of FreeBSD thanks to Warner Losh. And I guess those would be the big major differences. It was written from the ground up, starting in 2010. So it's a completely brand new code base. Aside from a development aspect, we lost a lot of home media features like DAAP and UPnP and mini DLNA. A lot of users were using their NAS to stream their files over, or their media to their PlayStations and whatnot. But we're working on getting that back in there via our plugin system, which should be coming out in a beta release this weekend, but is currently just built right into version 8.02.
And I noticed the hardware requirements have changed quite a lot from 7 to 8 as well. It looks as though, and I don't mean to sound critical, but it says FreeNAS 7 is a minimum of 384 meg of RAM, and then minimum of 256 meg RAM, but now you need a minimum of 4 gig to run FreeNAS. Is that something to do with the rewrite or the things that you're doing now that you weren't doing before?
Yeah, what we're doing now that we didn't do before is ZFS, and so or ZFS for our UK followers. But it's really memory intensive, and especially with things like deduplication. It requires maybe like 2 gigs of memory per terabyte, I believe. Don't quote me, but that's kind of hard on a live television show.
Yeah, that's okay. So it's a ZFS requirement more than anything else. Then it sounds like. Yeah,
it is. So if you went with UFS, you could use a lot less hardware to get what you'd need done.
And there's that. Well, one of the great things about FreeNAS I always found was I could recommend it to people who would come to me who knew very little about, well, actually what a NAS was, and I could say to them, well, you've got an old beige box in the corner there. Just install it on that. So unfortunately, it sounds like you're going to need quite a decent machine to run it on. Then you wouldn't be able to just take an old commodity PC and install it, because you'd need to maybe upgrade the RAM at least and some other things.
Before I tell anyone that you can't do anything, I would go ahead and say give it a try first.
Okay.
But yeah, to get the features that we're really trying to bring to the game here, you're going to need some RAM and you're going to need a pretty good setup. But if you're going for a minimal garage setup, perhaps you would use UFS instead and just forget about deduplication and replication and snapshotting and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Simon, go on.
So just leaving a pregnant pause there for the editor. So very interested about all this. The idea of having a NAS that you have to install and look after yourself. I do have quite a bit of NAS on my network here at home. And one of the things I love about it is that I can plug it in and forget all about it. Why would a home user want to have a NAS that they have to install and care for rather than one that they can go out to a store and buy?
Well, I would say cost is a huge issue. So you could go and grab a cheap something at Fry's. I'm not aware of the brands, but maybe you don't want to go out and spend the money on something you don't really know how it's going to perform or the features it's going to bring. With FreeNAS, at least you can test it out first. Try it on hardware you have lying around, and if your needs outgrow what you're currently using, then you could always either switch to another box or upgrade the one you have.
Right. So one of the things that I noticed in looking through the website was that FreeNAS 8 doesn't seem to have quite a lot of the features that I use in my NAS servers. For example, I use DAP to do music sharing around the house. We have DNLA, we have a TV set that has DNLA, and it doesn't look like FreeNAS 8 has got those features. Why is that?
Because we're really focusing on the NAS aspect and less on the media part, the media server part, because what we really wanted to do was build a modular system that could be extended in the future via a plugin system. So we've actually been polishing that up. John Hickson's been working on that. It should be coming out this weekend in a beta release, and essentially what you do is if you're aware of PCBSD, it's a FreeBSD-based desktop operating system. Well, their packages are called PBIs, and so what we've done is leverage that, and via a control file, you're able to install say the mini DLNA PBI into the FreeNAS interface, and in a couple of clicks, add that functionality. So that's kind of where our thought was at, and because our team is so small and agile, we didn't really have time to work on the plugins part until just recently.
Right. So why would you say I'm better off using FreeNAS than one of the alternatives for a user-installed NAS on my hardware that I've got in my network here?
For people with the hardware, ZFS is a huge win. You can't get that on Linux, and I believe that this is the only BSD-based open source storage solution. So there's another one. So also we have a modern user interface. I don't know how technical your viewers are, but if you have some Django or Dojo Toolkit developers watching, that's what we use for the interface, and that allows us to make everything really pretty. All that magical code that just exists in the background can be used via Firefox or whatever.
Right, right. So one of the great benefits of ZFS, as I recall, is the ability to have a mix of different volumes in your file system. Is that one of the capabilities that FreeNAS exploits? Am I able to daisy chain a whole load of different sized disks and make one great big pool out of it?
Oh, yeah. So what I like to do is I have a little FreeNAS Mini at work that it has 4 drives in the front, and I'll create 2 ZFS mirrors with the same volume name, and it stripes them, giving us software RAID 10. So yeah, actually it does. And you can create ZFS data sets, and then thin provision those to limit the amount of data you're allowed to store on the data set, and then share those out via different protocols.
Right. And have you got the ability to grow and shrink pools there, or am I stuck with whatever pool I configure when I install it?
You can grow your pool. I believe there is a limit. I'm not sure. I don't remember it right now, but yeah, you can grow your pools. You can, if you have, say you install this on, some rack mount servers, you can, attach a JBOD and then expand later, just throw in another JBOD, right? And it'll, and you can add to the pool, yeah.
Right. And is there any encryption support on FreeNAS as it comes out of the box?
I believe so, and it also has compression as well, and deduplication, and you can do off-site replication.
Right. So now I'm just reading the IRC here. There's someone on the IRC asking if FreeNAS is going to work with a Mac. If you have a network that's got Macintosh computers on, is it going to be able to use the file system that you are sharing as AFS, or do you have to use it as Samba, or does it not work at all, or how is it?
We use NetaTalk 221, so I believe that talks to the Macs via AFP, Apple File Sharing Protocol, and I believe when we updated NetaTalk the last time, it added support for Lion and Time Machine backups, so short answer is yes.
Excellent. So I'm curious about the. I know you were saying you work for IX Systems, and they've kind of adopted the project. So what made them come in and adopt FreeNAS?
Well, the original founder of FreeNAS project, Olivier, he didn't have time to really maintain the project, starting a family and a new life. So the second in charge was going to head towards Linux because that was really his forte, and continue using the monowall framework. Or actually, excuse me, I misspoke. He was going to ditch the monowall framework too because it became really hard to maintain and a lot harder to add features. So IX Systems had been using FreeNAS pretty much since its inception in the office. And when we heard it was going to go towards Linux, being a BSD shop, we really wanted to help out the project in any way we could. So Matt Olander contacted Olivier, and he handed over the keys to the kingdom.
Wow, excellent. So how recent was that? Was that fairly recent in the development?
The political stuff started late 2009, and development began early 2010. We spent about a year getting something we were proud of out the door, and then continued to nitpick our way to our current 802 release.
Okay, cool. And IX Systems, you actually make NAS boxes, hardware that people can buy and install, as you say, and this is all using the FreeNAS software. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. We've been actually selling FreeNAS software on 2Us and with JBODs and stuff for a while now. For people, they call up and they ask for CentOS, or they ask for FreeBSD or whatever, and sometimes you get a call in for FreeNAS as well. It's, but yeah, now we actually currently offer, because we developed the current edition of FreeNAS in-house, we offer professional support and dedicated hardware that we've tested and have thoroughly vetted that be useful for the FreeNAS.
So what kind of solutions do you offer there? So if I decide, is it mainly for enterprise and so on? So if I'm assuming a home user's not going to go and buy a massive server. Maybe they would if they had the money, I suppose. But what kind of customers are you looking at with this kind of product then?
We're looking at people who are trying to find an alternative to NetApp. Starting at the $20K price range. With the cost of drives going up, and there's some pretty neat hardware to throw in there with like Fusion IO or InfiniBand. So we try to go towards the person that wants. We either say you want performance or reliability. We have right now. I think we have 6 models. 3 of them don't have Fusion IO cards, and 3 do. We had a FreeNAS Mini. It was using a little Chembro chassis, but the chassis got discontinued, and that was more towards the home user, office, small medium business type of deal. Something you could stick under your desk, but. This is mostly for, what we sell is mostly for somebody interested in rack mount hardware, something expandable.
Excellent. And so you also sell support services, is that right? So you guys will support the customers as well, I presume, in a kind of a Red Hat kind of way is a good one. Analogy that comes to my mind, yeah? Cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I believe we bundle that in. So if you buy FreeNAS from us, I believe it comes with support for a year, and I'm not sure if there's add-on packages, but I'm sure there is for on-site support and whatnot.
Excellent. You obviously, as you say, you're based on FreeBSD, and you're benefiting from things like ZFS, as we call it. So are there any other big features of FreeNAS that you want us to highlight, or you want to highlight for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. I guess for people who are installing FreeNAS onto a box with multiple NICs or network interfaces, you can use link aggregation. We have a interface for that. You can set up VLANs. I'm not sure if this is available for FreeNAS. We have an enterprise version of FreeNAS as well called TrueNAS, which offers failover and high availability via CARP. Yeah,
I was actually going to ask what the difference is, because I see on some of your some of the products I was looking at, they say they support software they support is FreeNAS and TrueNAS, and I was thinking, what's the difference between FreeNAS and TrueNAS? Then TrueNAS is an enterprise version of the same thing.
Yeah, sure. I believe TrueNAS is what adds driver support for things like InfiniBand and Fusion IO. The big difference is the version of ZFS is 28, whereas currently FreeNAS has version 15. The TrueNAS needs to be licensed and activated. Aside from that, it's the same thing.
Okay, right. So it's right. Okay, so it's an enterprise version that you would buy a license to run, I suppose, as you say. So I noticed that you've also got SAN functionality as well. Although it's called FreeNAS, you've got SAN functionality as well. So what does that offer to users?
Right off the bat, you can be an iSCSI target. So if you have VMware, you can have FreeNAS as your back end for that. I think we're trying to get some fiber connectivity supported, but we don't currently have that. So right now, I guess iSCSI is the big deal.
So very interesting to hear about all of that enterprise functionality you've got there. Tell me about your community around FreeNAS. Is it a very big community? Is it very diverse?
Yeah, I would say so. There's people always hopping in and out of the IRC channel, and we have a bunch of people who are always lurking in there. And it seems like the community is very strong. There's things like I created the Facebook page for the FreeNAS community, and I think in sometime less than a couple months we had 4,000 or 5,000 followers or something. So I just immediately I could recognize that FreeNAS was something people were actually using and talking about. Is actually pretty awesome.
Right. So does that mean that you have co-developers out there in the community as well, people who are developing the code and making commits in, or is all of the work coming from you and your colleagues?
Yeah, I would say most of the work, if not all, is coming from myself and my colleagues. What we hope to do is empower the community with the plugin system, which I hope to do a blog write-up, and I would like to mentor some community members who've been around for a long time and feel like they can't really help out because they're PHP developers. Whereas this is now Python, Django, and Dojo JavaScript type of interface. So I don't know if they feel like we stole their thunder or anything, or if they're just scared to dive in. But hopefully we can get some workshops sponsored by IX Systems, and maybe host some stuff on Justin TV or something, and really try and get the community's feet wet again. I'm hoping the plugin system really does that for them, because then the ball's in your court. You can you can decide which features you want to add to your NAS. If you want it to be a print server, make a print server plugin. And the instructions will be fairly simple.
Are there any other reasons why your community might not want to contribute? Is it do you have a contributor agreement? Do you require membership of some kind?
I don't believe so. It's just on SourceForge, so anybody can contact for commit access. I'm not sure if there's any kind of process to go through, but if you hop on our IRC channel or open up a ticket or anything, contact us in any way, and we'll try and help you out.
Right. And do you contribute upstream into FreeBSD as well?
Yeah, because a lot of our team are FreeBSD developers as well. Any useful stuff that we can contribute back, of course we do.
Right. So how does that work out for you? Because aren't NetApp also in the FreeBSD community?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure how much they contribute to the project, but yeah, I guess you could say that.
Well, the reason I remember this is because when I used to run open source at Sun, we had a bit of a run-in with NetApp, who they initiated patent violation litigation against us over ZFS. And we believe it was because they didn't want ZFS getting into FreeBSD. So in many ways, your FreeNAS project is the incarnation of their fears. And so it's kind of interesting and amusing, and I did wonder if you had run into them in the community. If you do see them, say hi from me, will you?
Will do.
So
yeah, I'm sure they're they're scared of competition, but I mean they're NetApp, so they can't be that scared. Their stuff's solid. So, I think we're actually targeting different audiences, but it's somebody who really wants a NetApp but doesn't really want to get in bed with somebody for life. Perhaps they don't like the agreement that NetApp signs, or the cost of drives, or things like that. I believe with a NetApp, if your agreement expires, your NAS shuts down. So we don't do anything like that at IX. So
right. So also looking through things, I noticed that you're keen on digital music. So are you a big NAS user yourself in your home life?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I'm trying to get into actually using it on a personal level. Starting this year, they just built me a nice little 2U. I'm trying to find a home for it right now.
Right. And are there any particular features that you want to bring into FreeNAS? I see that you're mostly involved in the UI design. Are there any other things that you're interested in taking in there?
So I guess what I immediately saw as something I could do for fun in my free time is making a Minecraft server plugin, and then having the Minecraft server on one pool with SSDs, and then have all the data stored on my other pools, and being able to host things like the Minecraft Google Maps stuff, which can take up a lot of space, like gigs a day. So that'll probably be my first plugin. I don't really do media streaming. I have a Netflix account and stuff like that, so I don't need to pirate anything these days.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much in terms of piracy. Not that I believe in the word piracy anyway, but I was thinking more in terms of I have a video producer in the family, and I know that he consumes infinite amounts of storage on our network. That's why we've had to put in gigabit Ethernet, and that's why we have a 12 terabyte NAS in our garden shed.
Nice.
I wonder whether that was part of your motivation in being involved in FreeNAS.
They just they asked me to get involved. I do the web design for IX, and I was doing some Django development in-house a couple years ago for an internal tracking database that we do for our servers and our software. So it seemed natural just to start on this project as well. But actually, I don't know. I've always convinced myself if I lose anything, it wasn't that important to begin with. But for my purposes, I host my stuff on SoundCloud, but it would be nice for me to be able to store, my working files. I do have a couple machines, so I have several backups of, like, say, my Ableton Live projects. So if I lost that stuff, it would suck. But I always try, like, if that kind of stuff happens to me, I usually just convince myself starting over will just only improve what I've done.
That's a good way to look at it. Speaking as a musician as well, I think it's a very good way to look at it. If you never know, the next song will always be better than the last one. That's the way to look at it.
Next song.
Exactly, yeah. And you mentioned Minecraft, and people in the IRC love Minecraft. I'm sure everybody listening or watching this show will know what Minecraft is, but it's a Java game which involves mining little blocks, and you can collaborate on servers and stuff with lots of other players. But they're asking us what your Minecraft username is because they all want to find you in the game now. So what's your username on there?
It's JNIX3, the number 3. So JNIX3. Okay. If you go to my Twitter account at James Nixon and just follow me, I'll post the address to our new FreeNAS backed Minecraft server. And it will have a whitelist, so just send me a direct message and I'll add you. Just don't troll us.
Excellent. So I'm sure lots of people will be interested in that. They're probably already on their way over there as we speak. So I was curious about you do a lot of stuff with PCBSD as well, the PCBSD project, to do with UI and quality control and that kind of stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with PCBSD and how you came to get involved in that?
Sure. Before I was employed by IX, I was shopping around for open source operating systems. I was kind of sick of Linux, and I met Matt Olander, and he, pointed me to PCBSD, and I tried it out. I think 1.5.1 was my first PCBSD install, or maybe it was 1.5.0, but I don't know. It just really intrigued me how powerful the user was on this desktop. I felt like you could really tweak every little thing to your liking, and so I started doing that. I would just mess around with some config files and change color schemes and choose different window decorations and just customize KDE pretty much. And I would use it at home and at work, for the last 4 years. So I'm in chat, and I'm not the best bug reporter, but I complain to the people who are. So, but from recently, I haven't been able to do much desktop customization because of my involvement in FreeNAS, but I hope to get back on that track. But I've been running PCBSD 9 since beta 1, and I will say it's rock solid. It is a complete rewrite. We finally have binary updates and an in-system updater, so you no longer have to use a CD installer to upgrade to the next version and things like that. So I've really enjoyed the ride on this last release, and it just came out. So if you hit up PCBSD.org and you have some extra hardware laying around or a VM to install that on, give it a try. It's a really good open source desktop.
Yeah, that's something that you hear a lot. I've looked at PCBSD, and something that I hear a lot from. Obviously, I'm a big Linux fan. I was worried when you said I got sick of Linux. Anyway, let's leave that one. But you were saying, everyone's got to have their own choices. That's cool. But PCBSD. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, BSD is great, but I would never use it on a desktop because it's useless on a desktop." But PCBSD is aiming to fix that, isn't it? So, it is usable as a desktop on PCBSD.
Oh yeah, I've played Left 4 Dead 2 and I don't know, 4 or 5 other Steam games under Wine 64-bit, Flash support used to be horrifying. Setting up printing can be a pain in the butt if you're not familiar with cups, but sound used to not work back in the day, but now it does. And as the various window managers also keep up, the usability gets a lot better with each release. So I would say, for somebody who's just, using their desktop to do basic, internet browsing, chatting, that kind of thing, gaming, development, it's a perfect platform for all that. If you have very specific tasks, like you mentioned earlier, like video production. If you're not capable of using open source tools like Avidimo, or if you're in music, you could use Ardor. And I was actually watching your show, last week about the Overtone.
Overtone,
yeah. That was really cool. I was showing some other guys at work that, and I think we should get a PBI for that really quickly.
Yeah, that would be great. So you can do a lot of the desktop stuff now with PCBSD. What desktop does it ship with? Are you using KDE or GNOME, or can you choose between them?
You can choose between the 4 supported desktops, which are KDE, GNOME, XCFE4, and LXDE. We also ship with Fluxbox, Window Manager, and a couple other really old school minimal desktops.
Are you shipping GNOME Shell with GNOME 3 with GNOME Shell now? Because that's the big new thing.
Yeah, I don't think we have the big new thing. We're usually a little bit behind Linux when it comes to stuff like that. We go for the more stable, mature code versus the new and cutting edge, and it seemed to work out for us.
Excellent. We've got a question from the IRC, redacted in the IRC. I'm assuming, I don't know if that's a real username or that's a reference to the fact that today is the SOPA protest day. Who says, considering FreeNAS's recent move to more of an enterprise design, are they going to be offering a centralized management system? So if you had a number of FreeNAS servers, are you looking at maybe having a centralized management thing for people to manage their kind of farm of FreeNAS servers?
Yeah, we actually had that on the whiteboard just a couple weeks ago. Some guys at work like to call this a single pane of glass. But yes, eventually we would have one interface to rule them all, but not today.
Right. Okay. So what's coming up in the future of FreeNAS? What have you got on the roadmap? You mentioned you had the whiteboard there. We can't see the whiteboard on your screen, but if we could, what would be on there?
Dashboard, a dashboard reporting with like some like a speed gauge, type of deal, showing you what's happening right now. I think just interface enhancements, the plugin system getting released in stable. Let me see. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in the works. Some behind the scenes, like ZFS daemon, and we want to daemonize the middleware for the interface, the mechanism which speaks to FreeBSD and the interface, kind of like an operator. A custom CLI, so that any activity you can perform in the interface you can also do from the command line with customized shell commands that maybe pipe a bunch of FreeBSD commands together for you, so you don't have to worry about that.
And one of the big things for me about FreeBSD, when I've recommended it to friends in the past, maybe people, as I said, who aren't incredibly technical or whatever, it's been the web interface. And that sounds like something that you've been very much involved with. So is that, I noticed on your list of features, you don't have light HTTP in there as a web server. So do you still offer all the web interface stuff in the new version?
So that kind of stuff is what we would like to use plugins for. We were using Lighty for our Django web server, and I believe we just switched over to Nginx. But yeah, that kind of stuff will be added via the plugin system. And yeah, I work with some really smart guys who are highly technical and very, very good at what they do. I am by no means an expert at the code, but I like to play around with the interface, and William helps me out a lot with that. So.
Excellent. And we've got lots of people asking. You mentioned before that, or Simon mentioned, in fact, that you produce music and stuff, and lots of people asking about that. And I'm really curious. Apparently, so you're a dubstep producer, is that right? We had Gamaral, I think it was, who maybe knows you. I'm not sure. Seems to think they might know you. Was asking about your dubstep music career. So tell us a bit about that. What kind of music are you making these days?
Yeah, I like to make house, dubstep, and electro. Really just experimental stuff. I'm not by any means good at it yet. I've been doing it for the last 9 months on my current setup, and I used to use SoundForge's Acid Pro, and then Sony bought it, several years back, and I just recently got back into it. But if you go to destructive.fm, you can check out some of my stuff, or hit up SoundCloud/destructive, DISTRUKTIV. But, it's just amateur stuff. I'm having fun. I really play drums for like the last 13 years, so I'd say that's what I'm most comfortable with. But, yeah, I'm just enjoying myself.
Excellent. So did you play in a band or anything? You still play the drums?
I had for several years, played all over LA. I've played the Viper Room and the Whiskey, and had a lot of fun in sports bars when I was a teenager in high school. And but for the last 5 years, I haven't really got into that. So I moved from the Inland Empire in California up to San Jose, and just didn't have a lot of musical contacts. So I would just play with the guys at work, and thankfully at IX, there's almost everyone there plays either guitar or bass or drums or does something musical, and so that's kept me pretty happy.
So just give us the SoundCloud, it wasn't it? Give us the link again. Let's get the plug in there so people can go and check out what you're up to at the moment.
Cool. It's /DISTRUKTIV.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Simon, what are the questions have we got for James?
Couple more. Really wanted to begin to head towards the door now, James, but a question that I did wonder about with FreeNAS was how FreeNAS fits into an era of cloud computing, whether there are features that you're building into FreeNAS that are going to make it work well with files that are out there in the cloud. One of my NAS, for example, has got the ability to sync files out of cloud storage. Do you have any plans for cloud support, maybe for Tahoe LAF's file system support, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we'd like to, somehow speak to services like Box.net or stuff like that. But we like to joke that you are the cloud when you have FreeNAS installed at your house or your office, and you're able to control it as you wish. So as far as connecting to other services, I think that's up to the third-party developer.
Right. And if I do install a FreeNAS, am I able to get to that storage from outside the house?
Sure, if your network is set up to do so.
Yeah, it needs some sort of server support within FreeNAS. There's some sort of function there that works with DynDNS and helps me find stuff.
Thanks. We have support for dynamic DNS and FTP, rsync, Unison, and I believe, and then you can share via CIF, Samba, NFS, and AFP. So using one of those built-in services, if that doesn't help you out, ZFS replication between remote FreeNAS boxes is pretty nice. But if you need anything else, then I'm sure plugins would be the place to go.
Right. Okay. So we're coming towards the end now. We inevitably have to ask you whether your geek preferences fit the template or not. So the first question for you is Python or Perl?
Python.
Hey.
It's a good job Randall isn't here, really, isn't it? And Emacs or Vi?
I would have to say Vim.
That's tolerable. The Emacs of the world will be after you, but Vim is allowed, I think.
I really like pretty colors, and my vimrc file makes tabs to spaces a non-issue.
Oh, right. And if people want to go try out FreeNAS, could you tell them some details about where they can go to go get the software, how to get involved in the community, those sorts of things?
Sure. We're on Freenode IRC in #FreeNAS. You can check out freenas.org. We're also on SourceForge. Just bear with us. It's a little slow.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this week, James. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and I look forward to adding a FreeNAS box to my network at some point. Thanks for coming.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, James.
Bye.
Well, sorry. Carry on.
We can do the dance here, Dan. So that wraps up the show for FreeNAS. What did you think of that then, Dan? Are you a FreeNAS user yourself, or do you think it's relevant?
I have used it a couple of times in the past. At the moment, I haven't actually got a NAS set up at home. I really need to fix that, because if I have some major disk failures, I could be crying as all my data disappears. So I run around telling everyone else to make sure they've got everything backed up, and then I'm my own worst offender. But yeah, brilliant system. And as I said, I have for a long time recommended it to friends who come to me and say, oh, I'd really like to have some kind of network file storage, but I can't, I don't want to spend thousands of pounds on some dedicated hardware to do it. I always say to them, get yourself a copy of FreeNAS, and chances are they've got some systems they can already redeploy to do that, and then they've got all the tools there to do it, and it's great for that kind of stuff.
And it looked to me like I'd need to have quite a meaty system to be able to have a FreeNAS box of my own. I do actually have a 4-disk RAID NAS in the shed, as I mentioned, and it looked to me like FreeNAS's hardware requirements were really quite taxing. And that, do you think that people are well placed to roll their own NAS, or do you think that it's better to have an appliance?
I think, yeah, it's definitely changed that, and that's something that we were talking about there with James. It sounds as though ZFS has added a lot of requirements to their hardware requirements, which is a shame, really, because as I was saying before that, it was, I think, 256 meg of RAM was the minimum, which, you know, everybody's got more than that on their phone these days. So it was great for that. But I think it's definitely a change of tact. But I think it looks as though it's going to be an interesting kind of route forward. I think there's still people who are going to roll their own kind of NASs and stuff, and it sounds like they're very keen on people trying that, as he said, you know, give it a try and so on. I wonder how much of it is just you know, being reserved over, not guaranteed. As you know, as a company, you can't say, oh, this will work on this hardware unless you've gone out and tried it all. So as James said, he encouraged people to try it. So maybe people should give it a try and see how they get on.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. So coming up soon on Floss Weekly, having heard from FreeNAS, just looking at the spreadsheet over here, we have David Skoll from Roaring Penguin is going to be joining us. We have the guys from Autotest coming up in 2 weeks' time. We have the team from Turmeric coming to talk to us in 3 weeks' time. And David Mertzer from Vega Security Tester is going to be joining us after that. So there's some interesting shows coming up. And when Randall is back, he is going to be lining up some more on the spreadsheet. If you have got a project that you're involved in that you'd like to see appearing in this space, then the thing to do is to go to your project administrator or project lead and suggest that they get in touch with Randall Schwartz. The instructions are linked from the Twit TV Floss Weekly website. You can follow us on Twitter and on Identica as at Floss Weekly. We're on Google Plus as well. You'll find lots of details about that in the wiki, and you can pull up information about past shows and future shows from there. Speaking for myself, I'm going off to Brussels in a couple of weeks' time to FOSDEM. That's the Free and Open Source Developers European meeting. It's one of the biggest open source events in the world, and a wide range of open source projects are going to be represented there, having their team and community meetings, and it's going to be well worth attending, completely free of charge to attend. Don't even have to register. You can just show up and join in the halls of the Université Libre de Bruxelles. And you don't have to worry too much about being able to speak French, because it's a broadly international crew that are there. I would love you to follow my writing on webmink.com. You see on the screen if you're watching the video, or in Computer Weekly UK. Dan, do you have any self-promotional items that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm incredibly jealous that I can't make it to Brussels this year. We met up last year in central Brussels, and I would encourage anybody who can get to Brussels to go to FOSDEM, because it is, as you say, it's a great event. It's by far the biggest community event I've ever been to. You've got like 5,000 or more people there. Incredible. So while I'm not going to FOSDEM, unfortunately, I'm actually going to be doing some gigs in Liverpool with my band, 20 Pound Sounds. So I encourage people to check that out. If you have a look on, there's all kinds of places, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. Or if you go to 20pound.net, which is 20lb.net, you can find out more there. And also, don't forget to check out Linux Outlaws and all the other shows that we do with Six Gun Productions, which you can find at sixgun.org, but not today because it's down for the SOPA protest. But normally, that's where you would find us. And you can also find all my stuff on danlynch.org, where there's the blog and links to Twitter and Identica, Google+, all those kind of things. So yeah, come and say hello. Always good to chat to people.
Great. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Well, that's just about it from Floss Weekly for this week. Next week, Randall Schwartz will be back, US immigration permitting, after his Insight cruise. And you'll be able to find out more about the world of free Libre and open source software. That's it. I'm Simon Phipps, and thank you for watching.